David Housel said it best, the whole of the Auburn experience. It encompasses so many different things, peoples, places, ideas, concepts, however you'd like to phrase that. But at its core, it is all about our sports, it is all about our culture, and it is all about our family. And because this podcast is all about the Auburn experience and that family, we need to bring in an Auburn family member to join me here for episode 21 of the Auburn Experience podcast with myself, your host, Kyle Loomis, and my co-host, Mr. Austin Scott. Austin, welcome back to the show.
War Eagle Kyle, thanks for having me back again. I'm still surprised every time you bring me back, so I appreciate being back on again. And one day maybe you won't feel that way, but I
I
hope that
was
you
good.
do for many, many episodes.
I was going to bring that up. I was like, you say thank you like it's not expected at this point. I mean, let's be honest. At this point, you're the only reason people come back because they're waiting to see if you're going to drop the camera in your lap
Yes,
again.
that's what all the people want is a mishap on the camera.
There are certain things about doing podcast content, however you want to say it, where you work on something so hard and you're like, oh,
Mm,
people are going to love this. And usually somebody appreciates it, right? But then it's
right.
just those things that you didn't even try, you didn't even meant to happen that just people love. And it's like, really, I mean, we just did that was by happenstance. And still
Yeah.
to this day, that thing has legs. So thank you for that piece of gold, Austin.
Oh yeah, and I do get stopped and asked about it frequently still. So yeah, my pleasure, Kyle, to help out the network any way I can.
Hey, listen, at least there was no physical or computer harm in the process of that. It was quite entertaining at the time, though.
Absolutely.
And that's the benefit of watching this live, which, speaking of which, we should just address this for those of you that are watching what is technically kind of like a live stream right now of this, but we're not actually there live with you. So we just want to say hello to all of those people that tune in every Sunday night at 9 Eastern
Hmm.
time to watch live normally, but you're kind of doing this with the premiere part of the YouTube thing. It's all weird. I'm not going to try to explain it here, but as always, we are thankful of those of you that are listening just from that format as well. So we're going to get our show, as I try to get together here tonight, started as we like to do, a little bit of Auburn potpourri. We've got two big topics we want to hit that came throughout the week, but just a little Auburn potpourri. I don't really know where to go with this one. What do you want to talk about outside of those two big topics, Austin?
Yeah, and we could go a number of ways. Something that we don't get too into the weeds with recruiting here, hardly ever. But it's a big weekend for this first year staff of Auburn football. Junior Day, their first kind of chance to meet and host and show off campus
Mhm.
to the 2024s. And truthfully, Kyle, I don't know a single soul of a name that's coming. And, that we're not even close to where I start to care or look into that. But I'm always really fascinated by these kind of weekends and these days because for some, it might be the very first time they're seeing city of Auburn, Auburn University, its campus, and they're the start to their Auburn experience, and whether
Right.
they end up coming here or not, but it's the first time some of these guys will get and their families, some of these guys and their families will get to fall in love with certain things about Auburn, or hopefully all of it. So excited for this staff to kind of get that chance. It's kind of their first time to really, I mean, they've been doing their homework and they have their
Right.
points they want to hit, but their first time to really get to show these people around Auburn, something to relate about for them is that it's a lot of their first time, being at Auburn in the last what 4 or 5 months or 3 months, and so
Mhm.
um, just excited, always excited when people get to experience Auburn for the first time. We've talked about that with Devin on here before, and her Auburn experience back at coming to a game. So it'll be cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool for outside of the aspect of who's coming and how many stars do they have and what positions of need are coming. There are kids that are going to be seniors this time next year in the hot time of making a decision, and this is where their conceptions and thoughts about Auburn really strengthen. And so I'm excited for them to get to experience a place that we love talking about so much.
Well, and the interesting thing about this is there's like this renewed interest in this concept of a junior day because there really wasn't much of that, at least last year, if not the last two seasons. Not to take
Yeah.
a shot at the last staff or anything like that, but that clearly wasn't as big of a hit as it seems to be this time. I continue to remind folks that with a coaching change, there's always going to be a renewed interest. So not to down
Absolutely.
in any way, but there is some of that going on. So don't act like this is not some like, oh, they couldn't do this. Well, yes, there's some of that, but it's also just because there's a newness, there's a freshness. I mean, for crying out loud, some of these kids are just coming to see this football facility. They've heard of
Absolutely.
it. They've seen people like me take pictures and share video of it out there, all the other media members, and just talking about, raving about what's inside there. Most of y'all hadn't even got to see the things that I've seen outside of just some pictures and small snippets of video. I mean, I literally walked through that place and was like, hey, man, hey, now, okay, this is pretty cool. Like I walked in and the first part of it was like, yeah, this is kind of what I expected to see, and I'm not like
Yeah.
overly wowed yet, but as we continued to go through all the things and they talked about the things that you're not seeing in there, I can't imagine as a junior in high school who's just beginning to contemplate life outside. And I'm sure they're all
Absolutely.
thinking about it before them, but starting to really think about where I'm going to be, how cool that is, and how good a selling point that is. We've seen how good a selling point it is for like the transfer portal and bringing guys in. They took one step in there and they're like, okay, I can't miss out on this for my
Yeah.
last season of eligibility. This is really
Yeah.
cool.
No, absolutely. And I mean, that, like, we can talk about how awesome it is for a weight room and how cool it is for them to have an extra practice facility. The buzz around it, and for kids to talk about it and think it is the coolest place in the world to go hang out is what that place is built for. I know there's tons of money that was in it, but this kind of weekend and kids coming, it being the first, step on the front porch of them experiencing Auburn is what it's for.
Yeah.
And so I can't imagine what they're going to get to see and do this weekend. So looking forward to hearing kind of stories about that and seeing social media reaction from kids about that. Because I mean, yeah, like you said, Kyle, we've only seen so much, and they're going to get to experience it and get to be on the indoor fields and take the pictures and sit in the
Mhm.
chairs and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be a cool experience for them.
Well, and you throw that in there with, and I know it's not going to be as big of a day as it typically is National Signing Day because it technically already happened. That's still so confusing. I feel like people are like, shut up about that, Kyle. You've complained about that enough. But I think a lot of people share my frustrations in the fact that early signing day is now actually signing day. But anyway, that's happening right after junior day
Yeah.
weekends or however you want to phrase that. And so that's kind of coincided with that. Switching gears just a little bit in our little potpourri segment, we're starting to get some whiffs of baseball and softball season coming, with the announcement of
Oh yeah.
practice schedule. Practice started today. I think that's correct. Softball's, I think, been at it for a little bit. They usually start. It's always funny how softball starts like a week or two before baseball. And I feel like they should just coincide almost perfectly, but their seasons don't exactly, their games not played all exactly the same way. But we're finally starting to kind of get some of that spring feel in terms of those sports flavors that come out in that time that are more prevalent. I mean, we're heavy into basketball, and we're going to talk about some of that here in just a little bit. But for me, that kind of whets my appetite to be back in Plainsman Park because I had a great time this past spring.
Yeah.
Yes, going to the baseball and the softball games, but just being on campus during that time of year, there's not as much franticness about the football or even trying to get to a basketball game or something. And it's important to be at these baseball and softball games, but there's just more of a, I'm here for the sports, yes, but I'm here for the whole thing, the whole experience.
Oh yeah. And there's nothing like it, and we've known that about Plainsman Park for a long time. Once really considered one of the best college baseball park in America. And now it won't be this year, but some updates to come. They're going to continue to keep it in the top tier. But I'm with you. I can't wait to get back. But the schedule is always so weird to me. I always think about. I met some of my best friends, some groomsmen in my wedding. Some guys I talk to regularly daily in college. My second semester, my freshman year, and we all met up at we all knew each other through a church group me, and we all met up at one of the first weekend of the season in Plainsman Park, and it was freezing
Oh, I
cold.
remember.
It
Yes.
was just blistering cold, and we were all, like, miserable. But I can still to this day remember we were playing Binghamton from New York. and there were some Binghamton parents in front of us, and they had, like, some hoodies and a hat and a blanket, and we're behind them. This is it's the first series of the season. Nobody's there, and so we're getting to sit wherever we want. We're sitting in
Right.
someone's season ticket seats, right? But we're sitting behind these parents, and they're just hearing us freshmen chatter about the cold, and they're like, "We're from Binghamton, like we're on like a 2 month road trip because our field is frozen. Like we can't play in our home field until we got to take this trip through the South just to be able to play baseball until we can get back home. This is nothing." And but I'll never forget that. And I think about that when I realize that the season starts in February every year because I'm like, that is not baseball weather or baseball season yet.
Right.
But
Throws you off,
it
yeah.
makes me so appreciative when we start to get the sunshine and start to get the springtime, and then when you can go out there in shorts and t-shirt and sunglasses and enjoy some baseball at Plainsman Park. And it's coming. It's coming soon.
Yeah, and enjoy what you got left of the left. We've still got plenty left of all the winter sports, but just
Absolutely.
starting to hear about practice starting and then starting to see their social media presence and marketing start kick up a little bit is really starting to kind of get me in that mood to do that, to go spend some weekends in Auburn, and do all the things that you can do over a weekend that's not as hectic as a football weekend, with the things that you can go eat, experience, and just chill for a
Yeah,
little bit, and go to Plainsman Park or to Moore, JMB Moore, and spend some time there. All right, let's talk
absolutely.
about segment number 2 here. I'm going to save, I think, the basketball discussion because most people know this time of year we're going to be talking about some basketball stuff right now, and it's a little bit more frustrating now. So let's table that for a second. Let's talk about some good news, and this is something. The minute it happened this week, I think I texted you right away. I was like, "Well, there's our first topic for the show," because
Absolutely. Yeah.
this is something we all saw coming, I think. I think we all would have been shocked if this hadn't have been announced, if it had been a different decision. But obviously, last season being Stan White's, the last season before retiring, as they used to call it the color commentator, and now I think they're calling it football analyst now, the second in command on the radio. Basically, the
Right.
person right alongside the voice of the Auburn Tigers, now Andy Burcham, has been for quite some time. Stan White, who's been there, been a mainstay over several different tenures there, through unfortunate circumstances, has been kind of the rock almost, has
Yeah.
left. And so that there's a sadness with that, obviously. We've already dealt with that side of it. We were just waiting for the replacement. And I think a lot of people knew what was coming. Jason Campbell being named the football analyst, number 2, right beside Andy Burcham in the booth, starting in the spring. Your thoughts on that announcement?
Yeah, truthfully, and I think it's really more than anything, mainly because I hadn't thought about it all that much. I knew Stan was, moving on, spending some time with family. I really hadn't thought about his replacement. I just thought it would kind of come naturally. I didn't think they'd do anything for the A Day. I didn't think they'd. I thought it would just kind of happen. They'd maybe test someone out at A Day and like a Jason Campbell, and then see what the kind of reaction was, how he did. But like you said, when it was announced, I said, "Oh yeah, that makes
Right.
sense, and that's a great
Come
fit."
on.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, come on, who else are you going to pick? And so, yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And Kyle, I think you tweeted it, like, to have Cadillac this past year be the interim head coach for Auburn football, and now Jason Campbell is stepping up to the number 2 spot in Auburn radio broadcast. Um, you know, it makes me feel, one, a little old to know that guys I watched and idolized and played, and now I'm like, "Oh, man, they're, like, taking, like, positions of, like, I don't know, higher ups outside of just being my football players."
Right.
But it's really cool to see and be in that position, and to still, find, just like we did with Caddy, find a new kinda adoration for them, and then
Yeah.
them instill a new little special spot in our Auburn hearts. And so it's so cool. It's gonna be awesome. I think Jason and Andy will work really well together, and we've heard Jason some already on the
Right.
broadcast. He's helped out with pregame shows, done a little sideline work with Ronnie. Um, I think that is a how do I want to say it? Undervalued thing that people aren't talking about. I think Jason and Ronnie are gonna get at each other and make those broadcasts a
I
little more
hope so.
humorous. I think they're gonna poke at each other a good bit, and so It's awesome. It's gonna be so cool to hear Jason Campbell, with Andy and, add a little new flair. But I saw so many people bring it up, and they're so right. That is a spot where Auburn quarterback legends have made it a mainstay
Yeah.
to be in that number 2 spot, and so he is a perfect successor, and, I can't wait. I can't wait for that A-Day game. I think that's gonna be fun.
Oh, there's 2 things there I wanna hit on because one of you brought up I loved your concept of you can just imagine maybe some of the fun that Jason and Ronnie can have with each other now that he's in that part of the role on the
Yeah.
radio team, and Ronnie, as far as we know, is gonna still maintain that being that sideline reporter. I can just imagine Jason being like, "Alright, we're gonna go down the sideline to a guy who used to be able to run that fast." Just like,
Yeah.
is that I'm not sure who can run faster anymore, Zach Etheridge or Ronnie Brown, but let's get a race out there and see what happens. Who can basically it's the race to not see who can pull a hammy at this point.
Well, like I did so many times, I'm gonna hand it off to Ronnie down here. Tell us what you're doing down there, Ronnie. I can see so many quips that they're gonna come up with. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun.
The jokes just write themselves. I mean, they really do.
Absolutely.
I love that. I'd hope some of that camaraderie that I'm sure they still have to this day. It just the whole concept of thinking back to I remember for some of these games watching Jason under center, Ronnie in the backfield, where in my old house we were sitting, like where my dad was sitting next to
Yeah,
me, or where
right.
if what my mom was doing in another room because she didn't watch the games with us because she's technically a Bama fan. I
Happens.
didn't say it.
It's okay.
I know we all have our problems we have to deal with.
We
Sorry,
all
mom.
find the light someday. It's okay.
Well, I love her dearly. She just can't find that light on that aspect.
Well,
Anyway,
I mean, just like the rest of us, we're all gonna meet Jesus one day and have to atone for our sins and
I mean,
answer for what
really,
happened. So
I mean,
it's now or never.
I mean, really. I'm just imagining that part of it, just like Kyle watching Jason Campbell throw this ball would never have thought he's going to step into that role and
Yeah,
do
right.
something like that. Like, but the fact that they're all there, like, Caddy's here, Ronnie's here,
Yeah.
Jason's here. You know, we've had other players come back. Zach's here. Marcus Davis is back. And I know he's not part of that era specifically, but like,
Mhm.
just and I know, folks, I know that we're not exclusive to the concept of former players or however association they were with their university previously coming back to do things, but it just seems like it's different here. And that's what we talk about with the Auburn experience and trying to really pinpoint what this is all about. This is like something the players want to come back to and be a part of. Like it's not that your life's incomplete with I hope it's not, but at the same time, there's something that's enhanced by being part of this still, even if you can't do it in the same role. Like I'll never be able to well, I guess I could pay some money and be a student somehow again in a master's program if I wanted to, but trust me, Auburn, you already took enough money from me. But I'll never be able to do that again. But I can be involved in other ways. That's why I do this. This is why I do what I do. So I can be part of it in a same but different way all at the same time. So I love that concept of it, that they're just back together on the field
Yeah.
together. It brings all the feels
No,
back.
100%. And it's like you said, it's not exclusive to Auburn. Like we see this happen with other people, but we've all talked about how okay, after he got fired, Chiswick still came back. After he resigned slash got fired, Tuberville was back for a while. You know, that hasn't happened in a lot of while. Another is still coaching. I don't think one is ever coming back. But the
Too
the
soon.
fact that sold that house pretty quick. The fact
Oh,
that
dang.
we just have so many kind of still stick around, it reminds me of just that adage of, if you're outside of it, you really can't understand it. But once you're inside of it, it's really hard to explain to others.
Mhm.
And so it's special. There's no way about it. It's special that just a small little town with a campus that literally is the only thing here just encompasses so much and that
Mhm.
people want to come back and still be a part of everything that goes on here on a regular basis. Like that's the thing about this is, Ronnie doesn't necessarily live here, spends a lot of time in Georgia and works in Georgia, but is back all the time for his
Constantly.
job and willing to do that.
Yep.
Like that's a drive and a commitment to do that, but it means that much to him. And I don't know where Jason lives or anything like that, but to want to take on that commitment and give back to Auburn in a way when he's certainly given plenty already
Mhm.
is really special. So
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yeah, and the other little cool aspect around out this, like, just the fact that that position's been held by quarterbacks at Auburn for the
Yeah,
longest time. That's just
yeah,
it makes sense. It's the same concept when you heard Jason was announced. Okay, that makes sense. But it also kinda
exactly.
makes sense that a quarterback, because it's such a the cerebral level that that position holds on the game and all that does. There's no like I would argue probably linemen sometimes are even more cerebral than some of the other, positions on the team. But quarterback is in essence the de facto leader of the team, and it would make sense that that position would hold kind of a to explain what's going on in the field, especially offensively. And so Jason's going to be able to do that. Stan White was able to do that. Charlie Trotman was able to do that.
Yes,
Pat Sullivan was able to do that. I
yes,
mean, it just the history of the people that have sat in that seat is incredible, and the fact that Jason gets to be the next in that line, it just I was trying to think how old I would have been at the time, probably 12, 13 to 16-year-old Kyle is just loving every minute of it. It's
yeah,
beautiful.
and I think it's obvious when you look at the posts, so you look at the quotes from Jason. He understands the magnitude of that role and the honor it is to be the next Auburn quarterback in that role. And it's never been said that it's an Auburn quarterback position, but like you
But
said,
it is.
from Pat to Charlie to Stan to Jason, it's kind of become that, and so it's special. And I think with Stan, it was hard for me to realize, but he's been through, Stan has been our steady, for a while. He was with the late Jim Fife. He was with Rod. He's been with Andy these last couple years. And so I hope that for Jason, it's another 20 years, just like we had for Stan.
Yep.
And then we're talking about, some Auburn quarterback that probably hasn't even played it down yet. Will take over for Jason by then.
Oh man, that's just making me feel even older. So thank you for that. All right, let's get around to talking about this basketball team. And we to be frank with everybody, we are recording this a few days earlier than we normally do just because of my personal schedule. And so we don't have the benefit of discussing what's going to be really fun. And regardless of how the team's going, I love the SEC Big 12 Challenge that's ending this year, and I'm sad about that, but I'm also excited for something new when it comes to those
Me
type
too.
of showcase things. But in the Big 12 is showing itself to be very good this year too. So maybe it's a nice break from that. And the ACC seems to be struggling in some areas. So maybe it's a good time to switch over. But we can at least talk about the cycle that Auburn fans are going through this season with this basketball team, the men's basketball team specifically. And I won't call it an up and down nature yet. This is not the football team that's winning one, dropping one, winning one, dropping one, or that kind of thing, or dropping five and then winning one. Like, this is the basketball team that is having a little bit of adversity, responding every single time, and then having another kind of disappointment, and then responding again. And it just seems like I don't know. Maybe I'm being too critical. I'll admit that, but I just feel like our fan base has gotten a little bit not used to adversity. Am I being a little bit hypercritical with that? You can be honest with me if you think I'm being that way.
No, I mean, I get where kind of both sides are at. I think that a lot of the criticism comes from this year, comes from it looks like there's just a pattern with the losses, and when there's excellent guard play on the other side, we can't really seem to do much about it. I think that's a seeing something that's not really been corrected yet while still halfway through the season is frustrating to fans at the same time. And, you know, just like football,
Mhm.
I think people get a little bit too obsessed with what's going on the other side of the state when you just need to worry about what's at home for
I
now.
didn't even think about that. Thank you for bringing that up. That
That
is exactly what's going on here, Austin.
that's 100%,
Oh my
not
gosh.
100%, a lot of it.
That's 90% of what's going on here.
A lot of people are obsessed with what's going on. And look, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be mad about it. It stinks. I really wish that they weren't having a great year, but they are. Let's also remember last January, Auburn team looked like they were going 40 wins and taxi to the almost said state championship, national championship. So it's still
Oh, we
very.
did we did we did the state
Know it.
championship technically.
We did. It all flames out at some point. So like let's just they might not. I'm not saying they will, but let's just still a lot of basketball to play. However, on the other side, I think you do bring up a point that you know, there were, and I'm not saying we always need to be thankful for Bruce and be thankful for that we're not with Tony Barbie anymore, but that there is look at the progress and trust the process to
Right,
say Bruce has proven time and time again he knows what he's doing. He's going to figure out. That doesn't mean he's infallible, and that doesn't mean that
right.
his teams are always going to be. Well, now you've gotten the Final Four. We should be every year. Well, that's not sports. Why would you want to keep
It's
watching
not
if you
reality.
are guaranteed what happens every time?
Right.
So just everybody calm down. It's okay. We're going to get through
Yeah.
it. It was a tough game, and let's just like give credit to Texas A&M. Had an
Yeah.
incredible game plan. Had the honor and privilege of being able to go to the game, and Buzz Williams coached an
Good coach.
amazing clinic on defense. He is an incredible coach. I don't know why he still wears a three-piece suit. It's time to get over that.
It's a lot of man to fit in
Nobody
that
thinks you're
three-piece suit.
special. Nobody thinks you're special. And every one of them on the coaching staff looked like they were preachers out there. Like, no, we don't need that. It's
That's not where I
2023.
thought you'd go tonight.
Bruce is in sneakers and a polo, and look, if he was sweating, I know you're sweating. So just we don't
Let
need to be wearing all that anymore.
let
But
let's
that
be
did not
honest,
hamper
though.
his coaching style at all.
Let's be honest, though. I mean, I love you, Bruce Pro, but that man sweats like nobody else. I mean,
Nobody's
so
business. I mean, that man, when the trend started, no one was happier when the trend of no more suits started. Bruce was like, absolutely, I'm out of there.
oh, I
The
the
dry
exu
cleaner bill for that man, I can't imagine.
oh, yeah. But I do miss seeing him, like, whip that jacket off and throw it to the seat sometimes with that Bruce Pearl
Yeah.
way he does, but, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a art that or not a art, but a style that's going by the
Mhm.
wayside, and he's obviously saying, "You know what? I'm gonna maintain that and then some." So, whether you wanna
Yeah.
give him compliments on his style of attire for basketball games or his coaching, they did a great thing. We did lose to a good team, I think, and a team that's going to be there right at the end, as it looks right now. So we
Right.
took one on the chin. Everybody relax a little bit. And I agree with you. I think there's two sides of that coin. You don't need to like be so, oh, Bruce, you can do no wrong. And he doesn't think
Mhm.
that way either. He's very honest guy when he's dropped the ball on some things. And I think that is a good point that you brought up about a pattern that has not been corrected yet. But what I continue to argue with folks is, and what I started this segment with discussing, is that yes, there is a pattern, but every time the pattern has come back, the other pattern continues with it of response. Now, you may say,
Mhm.
well, we didn't face a big guard in that time or a guard that just went off or just had, one of his best games of the season. Sure, that part of the pattern may not have maintained, but we still responded. And on the road too. I mean, this
Yeah.
SEC league this season for the men's side is very hard to get a win in no matter where you go. I mean, you could South Carolina's is struggling hard. Georgia's kind of up and down. There's some other teams that probably aren't where they need to be right now, but it's not easy to go anywhere in the SEC right now. I'm not going to sit here and say we're the best conference in the league this year. We're up there, but it's difficult to get wins, and you're gonna have a few more bumps and bruises, folks, and that doesn't mean that the season's over with. So it just annoys me because I get on my high horse, I think, because I didn't just watch the Tony Barbie era. I lived it, man. I lived it. I was there for some of that. I know personal stories about some things from that program that just make me thankful that I did not follow my aspirations to continue my college career outside of AUM. So I was like, I dreamed of playing for Auburn basketball, but I was like, you know what? I can't hang with that level of player, and probably for a good reason because I would have been coached by Tony Barbie. And that's not me saying that I would have had any chance making the team, folks. But I mean, I had aspirations for that. But man, it's going to be a wild the rest of the season, though. I'm excited still to watch it because I think there's a lot left on the table. One good side to all this, let's flip this over just a little bit. Yeah, the men at this moment, we're not super happy with them. We'll see how the West Virginia go. The women, though, are on a little bit of a hot streak. They went through the gauntlet of the SEC,
Yeah.
whether it's Dawn Staley, everybody else in the SEC who's just at the top, they played them and they just got beat up. And they finally have gotten to where they seem to be talent wise amongst the SEC. And they're showing what they showed a lot during a non conference play. 2 SEC wins in a row. One on the road. I, I mean, I'm not saying that this is the corner being turned here for this season, but it's like what I was trying to say with the men. There's patterns that I saw established early that are starting to kind of prove to be true, and it just wasn't just a fluke. So, again, not trying to jinx them. We did that with volleyball, but I'm just very excited for the women's team.
Yeah, and you said it, and it like in the SEC, we know this as it's the greatest fan bases in the country, the environment's the best in the country. So men's, women's football, baseball, softball, volleyball, it's hard to win on the road. In women's basketball, it's no different. One of those wins was at home. A really good Ole Miss team who had one conference loss comes in. Auburn takes them to overtime, ends up pulling out a win. Big win for the program, big win for the atmosphere. Go
Yep.
on the road to Kentucky, a Kentucky team who in the past has done well, struggling this year. Still, you go on the road to Kentucky, a place where they basketball, and get out and pull out a win. Like you said, after getting just whacked every which way by South Carolina, whacked every which way by LSU, uh, found a way to rebound and get on a little momentum streak here and get some wins. So I really hope I'm not sure who they have this weekend. I'm really hope that is a way that they can kind of carry that into and get
Mhm.
some positive momentum for Johnny Harris and this staff because just really like this team. I really like the way the coaching staff is putting it together. And I think that there's potential there. I just hope that
Yeah.
they can keep pushing it and pulling it all together in one way.
Well, the great thing is they gave themselves such a great start in non-conference play. Now they've got to do a little bit more in
Yeah,
SEC to ensure hopes for something a little bit more outside the regular season. But what I like is the way the teams play and the confidence that they're seeming to play with. And we've seen them already take down mighty teams before in their first season, like Tennessee. So what we could have happening here is maybe a men's team that is maybe going to start figuring out what keeps ailing it, and a women's team that is finding its stride, even if it doesn't continue winning every single game or every other game or whatever, but starts winning more than they have been in SEC play. We could have a really fun February, early March before things get really interesting here.
yeah,
And I'm excited. I love the sport of basketball. I love talking about it. And to me, when the men and the women are both doing good, that's like the sweet spot for me. I'll appreciate.
yeah,
I've been through times where it was just the women, that's all they were doing, and I saw the curtains pulled up in Beardy's for just to fill more seats because we didn't have enough room for that. I've seen the men be the only thing that was relevant. I'm ready for them to come together again. So I'm rooting for Coach Harris. I'm rooting for this team, and I'm rooting for Bruce too to kind of figure out what's ailing them because I want me some March Madness, but in the good way for Auburn basketball.
yeah. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And it's special when the Auburn people can get behind both at the same time, and both are clicking, and both with programs that have had that success in the past, and just looking for it to be at the same time. So hopefully
Yep.
that's coming soon.
There's a topic I want us to do when we have some of those slow days in the future when there's not a lot of sports going on that I want to tackle in terms of how we help the programs that maybe don't get as much attendance and stuff. That I think it's a little bit controversial, but I think we'll have fun discussing it. So we'll save that, table it for another day. But we will also table this episode for this time around, episode 21, if I don't have my numbering wrong. And we appreciate you guys being patient that weren't able to watch this live, how you're technically watching live, but we're not there again, as I reiterated. For those of you that are listening on the podcast, we'll be back on our regular schedule of doing our live recordings 9 Eastern time on Sunday nights when I get back from a little R&R, and we're excited to continue talking about the experience sports, our culture, family, and otherwise. And we appreciate you guys being here. You can find me on Twitter at Kyle Loomis 24. Where can they find you, Austin?
Austin G. Scott, let's hit me up.
And he promises that he won't. Well, I should say we promise that we won't give you a
Yeah.
hard time on social media anymore about all the video stuff, but I probably will at some point.
No promises. I'm okay with that.
Thank you guys for listening today or watching, however you got here. We appreciate you. And until we talk to you again, War Eagle.
War Eagle.